Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar which the focus of which is living with uncertainty, and today you have Jodie, our super support specialist who covers the Midlands, and myself, I'm Director of Policy and Support Services for Brainstrust. So we're delighted to have you here today. This was actually one of the very first webinars we did, so I have a soft spot for this one. It's a game of two halves. The first half of this webinar is about deepening our understanding of what we mean by uncertainty. But most importantly, as with all our webinars, we make it meaningful and relatable to people living with a brain tumour. So this particularly will look at how is living with uncertainty different from people living with a brain tumour, which includes caregivers, and also how it impacts. And then the second half, Jodie will be exploring some of the strategies to help us cope with living with uncertainty. And at the moment, I think, we're all bombarded with info about health and well-being. And in a way, I think we are actually in a very strong position as a community of people living with a brain tumour. Because uncertainty, the day you're told you have a brain tumour, and even the run up to diagnosis, you have been living with uncertainty. So I think there's a lot actually we could be teaching the rest of the world about how we live with uncertainty and what the strategies we use. But hopefully you'll take away some new ideas from this webinar and leave with a deeper understanding of what living with uncertainty means. Jodie, can we go to the next slide? Thanks. So this is just something, an example where we can step back for a moment and think about actually what does it mean to be human. And this triangle is a well-known triangle. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically, for us to survive, you need to have everything in the bottom, the pink bit, the physiological bits. You need to have food, you need to have shelter, somewhere to put your head, and you need to have water. So that's for basic survival. But then equally, to be able to move out of that, you need to feel safe. So you need to have a roof over your head. You need to feel secure in that place. And you also need to have some sort of income or some sort of finance or resource on which you can survive. And those are the key essentials for living. And then, of course, to make living worthwhile, and that's where our quality of life comes in, you move through to having a sense of belonging, to feel loved by somebody, but equally to return that love. You're respected in society, so you have esteem and confidence, and your self-actualization. So what does it mean to be me? What's my identity? What's my purpose? Why am I here? What's my footprint that I'm going to be leaving? So first of all, I'm recording this webinar with Jodie at a time of COVID-19 when we've got this existential global crisis going on. But catastrophes are common. The threats we face every day are countless. See, on the macro level, you've got the global, like we're all experiencing at the moment with coronavirus. You have famines, floods, war, disease. So there's a downturn in the economy and sudden isolation, which is what we've all been experiencing. And then on the micro level, which is the personal level, being diagnosed with a brain tumour, losing a job, these are all disasters. And disasters are a regular occurrence. So we should steel ourselves to expect them. I can't think of any single person that has lived a life without some form of catastrophe. And actually, it's the way you move through that catastrophe, it's the way you regard it, it's the way that you deal with it that makes us the people that we are. So we are stronger than we think, and we're actually very robust and actually need very little in our lives to get by. I'll just point again to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Physiological aspects and safety are the two basic needs we have. The rest are all wants. And we're able to sustain an awful lot of hits and somehow keep going. So when you're in crisis, just focus on this truth, that you will have been in this space before and you survived it. So most of what we learn comes out as suffering, and it helps us put our past and our future problems in perspective and shows us that the good things in life really matter. And I think that's never more so than now, when I think we've all taken some time out to reflect on what's important to us. And I certainly know that communications, feeling connected, being with family, and just re-engaging with nature to some extent, those are all the things that have been important to me. And I've been re-evaluating those things. So I can sit and listen to the birds now, which is something I haven't done for very many years. And I can actually distinguish the different bird song. And I've also noticed how loud they are. The other thing to remember is that we've done this before. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're listening to me rambling on, is a testament to your fortitude. You've endured a brain tumour diagnosis and all that this brings with it. You've passed every single test of life that's been thrown at you. So take courage from your own example. You've got this. And remember too that this moment too will pass. We'll never be in a place of suffering forever. It lessens, it fades, it passes. And dawn will always follow. So remember, you can't calm the storm. Stop trying. But you can calm yourself and the storm will pass. Okay, let's look at what is the dictionary definition of uncertainty then. Can we have, thank you. So living with uncertainty is when we live with the anxiety that something bad may happen. And when you've been diagnosed with a brain tumour, we often feel that our lives are less secure, more fragile than they once were. You find yourself living in a space where nothing seems certain anymore. It's a scary place to be, and it can leave you feeling out of control, helpless and overwhelmed. But if you reframe this, when you're living with a brain tumour, you've already been living in this space. So you could say, we're ahead of the game. The downside, of course, is that at the moment we feel that uncertainty is being piled on uncertainty. We're less secure about our futures with our jobs. We're less secure about the economic landscape. We're less secure about our health. Should we be going into hospital to have that scan? Or would we be better off waiting? What about my next round of chemotherapy? Am I opening myself to greater risk of infection by having that round? Or would I be better off just missing a couple of months and then picking it up again when I feel hospitals are a safer place to be? But living with a brain tumour brings uncertainty from a variety of things. Next slide, please, Jodie. Thank you. There's the knowledge that at some point your tumour may well progress. So is that latest headache a sign that things are changing? Or is it just that you're dehydrated, that you haven't drunk enough? And you find yourself paying attention to every potential symptom, whereas in the past you would have just dismissed it as a sore throat or hay fever, or, you know, a bout of nausea because maybe you'd had a heavy night the night before. Maybe you're living with seizures and the uncertainty they bring, so you don't know if it's safe to go and have a swim or go out on your own for a walk or go and have that bath. Or perhaps you're anticipating nausea and pain from treatment and are anxious about becoming less independent. Maybe you're a caregiver who's called home and the phone isn't being picked up. You drop everything to see what's happened. In the past, pre-diagnosis, would you have done the same thing? Probably not. And you may too wonder if the treatment you're receiving is the best, if it's top notch, or are you missing something? And that fear of missing out can really undermine our confidence in what we're doing. And your job, what happens if you can no longer do the job you have? Or if you have to change your role in your workplace because you can no longer drive? Or are you worried about redundancy now that you have a brain tumour? And as a caregiver, you may be anxious about having to reduce hours or give up something that gives you purpose to look after your loved one. So you become a servant to other people and not to yourself. And these are all real, valid anxieties that undermine our confidence. Although each of us differs in how much uncertainty we can tolerate, being diagnosed with a brain tumour can challenge even the most risk-tolerant among us. We love a sense of order, of predictability, and so randomness and chaos can be very scary. Finding a way where you're comfortable living with uncertainty means that you can lead a fulfilling life, one where you're at peace with uncertainty, where you accept it, and you can focus on what is important to you. Being comfortable, living with uncertainty, building emotional resilience will not stop you feeling stressed or experiencing challenging emotions. These are what make us human. But they will mean that you cope better and that you feel more in control and less overwhelmed. Let's look at what this really means in terms of a patient. So this is Rosie. Rosie I was talking to last week, she's a healthcare assistant and she lives alone. She has money worries. She's been diagnosed with a low-grade glioma. So she's on regular interval scanning to see if there are any changes. So she never really feels she can escape from this. She's a healthcare assistant in a kidney dialysis unit. So she's pretty busy at work and she knows that people depend upon her, particularly the patients. And she really enjoys nurturing her relationships with the patients. But she's waiting for surgery for a resection and a biopsy of a brain tumour. Her GP has signed her off for 6 weeks to cover the period up to her surgery. But because of COVID-19, her surgery has been postponed. She feels under pressure to go back to work because she's just playing the waiting game at the moment, waiting for the surgery date to come through again. But she's getting increasingly anxious. She doesn't want to catch coronavirus. She says she already has one thing that could kill her, and she doesn't want a second thing. So these are all real, valid anxieties that have undermined Rosie's confidence. And the negative chatter in her head has become a very loud voice, so she's stopped making plans just in case she can't make it. She lives on her own, so her world has become smaller. So she's suffering from anxiety, stress, sadness, fear, loneliness, despair, which then articulates itself through her physical well-being. She's not sleeping, she's not motivated, she's quite depressed. So what that means is that her actions are that she isolates herself more. She stops calling family and friends at a time when actually she needs to be reaching out to her family and her friends, and she's withdrawing, sitting and worrying, and she's actually stopping self-care. So how do you cope? How do you silence this anxious voice in your head? How do you manage to live with uncertainty without dissolving into stress and worry? How can you protect yourself? So we're going to move to the second half now, where Jodie's going to develop some strategies with you, where you can actually be in a place of ownership of uncertainty so that you're in control rather than it being in control of you. Over to you, Jodie.
Thank you, Helen. So, as Helen said, we're just going to go through a few ideas of different strategies that might be able to help when living with uncertainty. So, when living with uncertainty, both with regards to a brain tumour diagnosis and then the added extra of COVID-19 as well, it's all too easy to become consumed by thoughts that can at times be conflicting. This can increase these uncertain feelings and make us feel unable to block out the noise that these feelings create. So the first strategy we're going to talk through is about setting boundaries. At the moment, we're in a time where information has never been easier to access thanks to the internet. The downside of this, however, is that sometimes it can be difficult to get away from it, and the challenge is making sure the information that we access is reliable and factual. This can also be true of interactions with others, whether it's a difference of opinion or a relationship that you feel adds to any anxieties you have surrounding uncertainty. By setting boundaries, we can help to dull the noise of any influences that may impact us in a negative way. So I'll just go through a few ways in which you might be able to do this. So firstly, try to refer to reputable sources for information. You could also look at limiting yourself to looking at 1 or 2 types of different websites. For example, which types of sites and health websites you look at, media, and also charity information as well. By bringing too many voices into the mix, this can increase your anxiety around the uncertain. So the second point of setting boundaries is about limiting the use of online sources and social media. Social media has become almost an extension of an information source and is a lifeline for many when faced with a situation where you find yourself isolated and want to connect with the world. It can be a positive and a great way to connect with others. However, it can also have a lot of negative chatter and different opinions. If you find yourself spending too long on certain social media sites, try and limit the time that you spend on them. Maybe set yourself a time in the day where you go online, and when that time limit's over, go ahead and enjoy another activity. So next way is health checking relationships. So often we have different family members and friends that we share different aspects of our life with. During a period of uncertainty, have a think about who you feel you can rely on to help you with what you need. whether that be advice or just a listening ear. Try to surround yourself with relationships that have a positive impact on you. So the next point is about focusing on things within your control. These things that give us these feelings of uncertainty are often things that are not within our control and things that we can't influence. Rather than thinking about what you can't influence, think about things that you can influence and things that are within your control. What can you control and what action do you need to take to be able to change it? Okay, and the last point of setting boundaries is not to let fear influence your decisions. The feeling of fear is often something that can lead us to making decisions without thinking them through. Before acting on these things, think about what it is you are fearful of and what can help with that fear. It might be that it is having access to more information about a certain topic, or having a conversation with someone and talking about how you're feeling. Okay, so another strategy that we're going to talk through is about self-care. So setting aside some time in your day to do something for yourself can help give you the space that you need from things that you may be finding challenging at the moment and help bring some pleasure into your life. And self-care can come in many different forms. So maybe take some time each day to have a think about what gives you joy in your life. It could include things such as sitting in your garden and enjoying a nice hot drink, watching a favourite film or TV programme, or sitting and reading a book. You may also want to think about a new hobby or skill that you could start that might help to give you some new focus. Gather a list of things that you can do for you and build them into your daily or weekly routine. Look at this list regularly and remind yourself of it. And promise yourself to do one thing from this list every day. So the next strategy we'll talk about is exercise and rest. Exercise can improve strength, fitness, mood, and general well-being. But we know it isn't always straightforward when living with a brain tumour. The most important thing to do is to do what works for you. One such activity that's easy to build into daily life is walking. The payback from walking is huge, but pace yourself. If you haven't been for a walk for a while, set a realistic goal of 5 minutes, gradually increasing the time until you're walking for 30 minutes or maybe longer. If you're wanting to try something new or are unable to attend a regular exercise class that you previously would have been going to, have a look online for some classes or routines you can do from home. There are plenty of apps and online videos available for different forms of exercise, including yoga, weight sessions, and dance. When taking part in exercise, set yourself small, attainable goals that you can build on gradually. If you exercise regularly anyway, why not try increasing the amount you do or try something different? If you are new to exercise, start off small with one session a week and gradually increase it as you see fit. Rest can be as important as exercise when you are living with a brain tumour diagnosis. Like exercise, what type of rest suits you will be individual to you. Have a think about what your rest time looks like. It could be a few short rests or power naps, a longer rest at the same time each day, or resting between activities. Planning for rest is a key part of managing your condition. And by planning your activities, you can plan for rest too. And we have some more information about exercise and rest and pacing yourself in our fatigue resource that you can download from our website. Okay, so the final strategy that we're going to talk through is about mindfulness. So the practice of mindfulness is about taking the time to focus on one particular task or activity, whilst feeling relaxed yet awake and aware and being completely in the present moment. Allocating time in your day to being mindful can give you the opportunity to create space between your thoughts. When practiced regularly, mindfulness can help to reduce stress and anxiety, which can help your emotional well-being and aid sleep. So there's a few different ways in which you can practice mindfulness, and try to incorporate it into your daily routine. And this will depend, it's completely individual, and there's lots of ideas that you can adapt to suit you. Some ways in which you can incorporate mindfulness could be through certain hobbies or being creative. So have a think about things that you enjoy doing that you can use to practice. This can include activities such as DIY, gardening, painting, reading, and maybe some crafts as well. Another way which you can practice mindfulness is by putting your day to bed by writing your thoughts down in a notebook. Each day, take 15 minutes out of your day to get your thoughts down on paper. Have a think about what things are making you feel uncertain and anxious at the moment. Put them down on paper, and then after 15 minutes, put it aside and continue with your day. Another way in which you can incorporate mindfulness into your daily routine is using your daily shower or bath routine as your mindfulness practice. And we have lots more examples of mindfulness and different ways in which you can practice it in our mindfulness know-how, which we will link to at the end of this webinar. As well as this, at the moment, there are lots of mindfulness apps that you can download on your mobile device. Two apps in particular are Headspace and Calm, and they're available on Android and iPhone devices as well.
Thanks, Jodie. That was really comprehensive. So that's the end of this webinar. I just think some last words from me. Learning to live with uncertainty, I believe, is one of the greatest challenges in life. It's hard, but learning to live with uncertainty is an essential skill if we're going to be living fulfilled lives. And we can learn so much from uncertainty and even more about ourselves and the way we manage it. So be open to uncertainty, live in the moment, and act on your values. And remember the bottom line, all feeling states are temporary. And I think, you know, in that moment of extreme heightened emotion, just remind yourself of that. You will not be in that place forever. Other things that might help you is to go to our website and look at some of our know-hows. We've got know-hows on how to deal with the overwhelm, obviously one on how to live with uncertainty, building a team around you, and there's other areas about looking at quality of life too on the website, as Jodie's mentioned, with mindfulness and exercise. And I think too, sometimes it helps just to stop, have that pause in your day when you're feeling particularly stressed and ask yourself, what am I struggling with? And just keep asking yourself, what specifically am I struggling with here? So if you're a caregiver and it's the sense that you're fearful that you might lose your loved one, specifically, what is it about that is overwhelming you, that's creating a sense of uncertainty? And try and unpack it. Ask yourself what makes it hard, and then look at your values. What's important to you? What makes you who you are? Who's in your team that can help you? And who can you talk to? Well, remember, brainstrust is always here. You can talk to us, and we're also part of your team. And then think, when can you weave your next pause into your day? Look out for more other of our webinars. We've got, at the moment, we have webinars on managing behaviour and personality change. We've got ones on fatigue, dealing with the overwhelm, and then we have this one. And our webinar program's expanding too, as we're inviting experts from out with brainstrust to come and run some. So we've got some in June coming up on imaging and reading your brain scan, also how to manage epilepsy and seizures, and we've also got them coming up on diet and nutrition, and we're hoping to build in some more fun ones like art workshops as well. So thank you for your time today. Any feedback, then just email hello@brainstrust.org.uk. Good or bad, we embrace all feedback. It's what makes our work even more relatable and meaningful for the brain cancer community. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Jodie, too, for your tips on how to manage uncertainty. Bye for now.
Bye.